Space on the side. We got space right here behind us. We'll squeeze them all in. It's gonna be tight.
Come on out this way. Okay. Y'all, thank you very much. We have, as you see, we have a lot of people here. We have some from the power companies as well to answer all your questions. And I would first call on Chaplain Jeff Shealy, National Guard.
At this time, I want to invite the citizens of our state to unite in a time of prayer and reflection, each in our own tradition and convictions, as I pray for us all in mind. Blessed are you, O most gracious God, for you are merciful and you are just. We pray for all who are suffering the devastating impacts of Hurricane Helene. Take our anxiety and turn it into peace. Take our brokenness and our loss and give us strength and encouragement. Take our prayers and turn them into acts of compassion and mercy. And especially bless our state's leaders with your wisdom and inspire them to collaborate and to bring together the resources that you have given us, that we might serve our fellow citizens and offer them relief and wholeness. To you, O God, be all honor and glory, now and forever. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. We appreciate that. And also our signer, Helene May, is with us today. First of all, I'd like to say we have had, unfortunately, we know we've had 4 deaths, storm-related so far. 2 are firefighters in Saluda County, and 2 individuals in Newberry. We believe there'll be more, but they have not been confirmed, so we ask you keep all of those families and friends in your prayers. This is, Helene is a strong storm, as we know, and we've had strong ones before. They're very difficult to predict, as you know, but our team is excellent. We've had a lot of experience in these things, so all of our assets were positioned in the proper places, and I'd issued the executive order allowing the loosening of various regulations to allow all the counties and state assets and municipal to work together very quickly, as we always do. These storms come in different varieties. Sometimes it's the water on the coast, sometimes it's the wind on the coast, sometimes it's both. Sometimes we have rivers flowing, overflowing. Sometimes we've had dams breaking. In Hugo 89, that was a lot worse than we expected. It went all the way to Charlotte, as you remember. In 2015, Joaquin had the flood where the dams broke. In 2018, Florence, of course, was, we thought that Horry County was going to be cut off by the water there with all that flooding that dissipated into the marsh, fortunately. But we prepared for all of those as we did this one and as we did the next one, and we also have tornadoes popping up. But one thing different about this one was that we knew it was going to hit the upstate harder than usual, and it really did. Fortunately, we were prepared. We had people positioned there, but we can't stop the waves, can't stop the rising water, can't stop the rivers, and certainly can't stop the trees from being uprooted when they've had days and days of rain before the storm got here. So we've got a lot of work to do, and because we have so many power outages this time, with the trees being uprooted and falling, we have probably more power outages than we've had, maybe ever. We don't know, but we've had a lot of them before, and they always take a lot of time to repair. And this one is going to be no exception. So we ask everybody to have patience. It takes time. We have cellular towers that are out this time as well. So, but we do have the emergency signals are working. But we'll be getting to all of those assets as quickly as possible. But the crews are working around the clock to restore power. Again, it's going to take time. And we ask people, please, to be careful on those highways. Be careful. We got a lot of electrical lines are down. You can get hurt very badly with those, and also the roads. Again, we're going to be cutting and tossing, is what they call it, as quickly as possible to get the roads cleared. But there's going to be debris and logs and limbs on the sides of the roads, squeezing those roads, some of them for some time till we can get it all taken out of the way. So this is one that's going to take some patience because we have so much power that's out, and we have the executives from the power companies here to provide more details on that for the people. Now I'd like to ask John Quagliarello, the National Weather Service, to provide some details.
Thank you, Governor. John Quagliarello with the National Weather Service. I'd just like to start by saying the storm is weighing heavily on all of us at the National Weather Service as we hear reports of all the damage and fatalities that have resulted. Helene is now a tropical depression. It's located about 125 miles south-southeast of Louisville, Kentucky. The winds associated with it are about 45 miles an hour. It's still moving pretty quickly to the north-northwest, about 28 miles an hour. So that's good news in the sense that the impacts here at the state will be reduced at this point. We've already seen the heaviest rain bands depart the state, and with that, the threat of any tornadoes. There's still some lingering flooding, which I'll discuss here momentarily. The one thing we do need to be concerned with is additional gusty winds, potentially through much of the day tomorrow. So wind gusts up around 40 miles an hour or so is certainly still possible. So just be cautious when you're out there, doing any kind of cleanup. In terms of the storm itself, impacts really began several days ago when heavy rainfall developed in the upstate of South Carolina, well in advance of Helene. Then yesterday, heavy rainfall also began impacting the Midlands, all of which produced flash flooding. This flooding was only made worse when the heavy rainfall associated with Helene's rain bands overspread the area overnight. Rainfall totals have exceeded 15 inches in some parts of Oconee, Greenville, and Pickens counties. Farther east into the Midlands, rainfall amounts have been as high as 10 to 15 inches. All this water is now impacting area rivers in the upstate and Midlands, resulting in moderate to major river flooding. Major flooding is now ongoing or forecast to occur on the Saluda River above Old Easley Road in Greenville, the Broad River near the North Carolina border, the Broad River at Carolina Eastman, Watery River at Lake Watery Dam, and Stevens Creek near Modoc. These rivers should all crest tonight or over the weekend. The intensity of Helene at landfall, combined with its extensive wind fields and very fast movement, allowed tropical storm force winds to penetrate far inland, overspreading most of the state. Widespread wind gusts of 50 to 75 miles an hour occurred overnight into this morning, downing trees and power lines across much of the state. Some of the highest wind totals include 75 miles per hour in Beaufort, 72 miles an hour in Aiken and at the Anderson County Airport, 67 miles per hour at Columbia Metropolitan Airport, 66 miles an hour at Folly Beach, and 63 miles an hour at Charleston Airport. And also a wind gust just across the state line in Augusta, Georgia, reached an impressive 82 miles an hour earlier this morning. There were likely many tornadoes east of I-20 since yesterday, and in fact, the National Weather Service issued 63 tornado warnings statewide. It's unknown how many tornadoes actually occurred, however. The National Weather Service will have survey teams out over the next several days assessing the damage, but it will be difficult as there were overlapping tornado tracks, so we had multiple tornadoes keep moving across the same area potentially. And it's also going to be hard to determine whether damage that we see out there is a result of just the strong tropical storm force wind gusts or if it was an actual tornado. So that's going to take some work and investigating on our part. And then finally, we'd urge everyone to use caution while cleaning up and recovering from the storm. Post-storm fatalities can sometimes be as high as fatalities directly related to the storm itself. So In South Carolina, looking back over the past 10 years or so, I think we see just as many post-storm related fatalities as we do fatalities from the storm. So with that, just please be careful. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Secretary Powell.
Thank you, Governor. SCDOT has been actively responding to Helene. We have 2,300 employees that are currently working on 24-hour operations that began at 8 a.m. yesterday. As the winds were at Tropical Force Storm, we had to suspend operations as that was going on. So our crews, as soon as the winds have gotten down past Tropical Storm Force winds, have been going out and beginning the cut and toss operation to start clearing roadways. Our priority will be focused first on our interstate corridors. Then second priority will be critical corridors like where a hospital is located. Then we'll start looking at the primary routes. That's a U.S. route like a U.S. 29 or SC 81. And then we'll start working on the neighborhood streets. Trees that are entangled in power lines, we will have to wait to our friends in the utility industry to help us get those power lines disentangled from the trees, and then we can kind of work on those roads from there. We expect this to be a multi-day operation. We, in advance of the storm, moved 9 crews into the upstate. We are preparing now to move an additional 7 crews, and we'll continue to evaluate that as we get a better sense of the damages. We also have 30 contractor debris removal crews that are coming on the ground as well to help expedite that cut and toss operation. We ask residents to limit their travel during this time, but also to have patience as we do this operation with our partners in the utilities and local governments at DOT. Give the crews space as they do their job out in the field as we get this resolved. But know that the men and women of SCDOT are committed to getting South Carolina back to normal as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Secretary Powell. Director Kim Stinson, the South Carolina Emergency Management Division.
Thank you, sir. Kim Stinson, State Emergency Management Division. The State Emergency Operations Center is at OPCON 1, which is our highest readiness state. Priorities here at the State Emergency Operations Center are maintaining communications, road clearing, and power restoration. We have deployed some of our regional personnel to assist with authorities, and that will be increased as we move into the next 24-hour period. We continue to closely coordinate with county emergency management officials and began conference calls earlier this week to identify any unmet needs. Currently, there's 11 counties at operating condition 1, which is the highest level of alert, 23 at operating condition 2, which is an enhanced level of awareness, and 12 at OPCON 3, which is steady state. County primary focus currently includes search and rescue operations, possible local evacuations, sheltering, communications restoration, and road clearing. We do not have right now currently definitive damage assessment data. That's being done now, but almost all counties are reporting trees blocking roads, power lines down, and residential damage. And they're just able today, probably around noon or so, to get out into many of those areas to just start to look and survey the damage. So it's going to take some time to do that. We do have communications with all 46 counties from here. And today in South Carolina, county governments were closed in 14 counties with another 21 counties on delay. In the logistics area, we have our general logistics, transportation, and commodities contracts on standby. We've had so far 72 logistics requests, of which 25 have been completed and 47 are in progress. And the requests range from shelter support to debris clearance. We're also requesting search and rescue teams from both the federal government and from other states under the Emergency Management Assistance Compact. On the federal side, we have an embedded federal FEMA liaison officer here at the State Emergency Operations Center, and our federal coordinating officer for this particular event is en route to this area. Request for federal emergency declaration for direct federal assistance and emergency protective measures, which allows limited reimbursement short of a major disaster declaration, was approved last night. And as the storm moves South Carolina, residents must continue to be aware of the possible dangers. We've already talked about some of them. All of us must stay vigilant as the high waters, rather at the high winds and the flooding continue. In particular, staying away from flooded areas is very important and avoid taking any unnecessary risks. It is also very important to stay connected with reliable sources for updates. Misinformation can be as dangerous as a storm itself, so please rely on those official channels, including your local emergency management offices for accurate information. And then lastly, our website at scemd.org and also our South Carolina Emergency Manager app are excellent sources of information. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. General Van McCarty, South Carolina National Guard.
Major General Van McCarty. Currently, we have approximately 115 soldiers on state active duty. Those initial soldiers were brought on to support rescue operations if we needed that in the western part of the state, primarily with the use of high water vehicles. We're currently transitioning to a recovery effort, bringing on engineer assets that will be working with the Department of Transportation to help clear the roadways. We're in good shape as it relates to our aviation assets. We have 2 helicopters that are currently available to support HART operations. That's the helicopter aquatic rescue teams. We also have heavy lift helicopters if we have to move commodities. We'll be assessing the need to bring in additional assets from other states or the ability to assess to bring in assets off of active duty. Right now, the National Guard here in South Carolina is in great shape to support recovery operations.
Thank you, General. Director Robert Wood, South Carolina Department of Public Safety.
Thank you, Governor. Rob Woods, Director of South Carolina Department of Public Safety. Currently, SCDPS has 236 Highway Patrol troopers and state transport police officers assigned to the traffic incident portion of the response. Most of those traffic incidents at this point have been either collisions or trees in the roadway. We'll have 152 officers and troopers assigned to the night shift tonight. Just to give you an idea as to what our calls for service volumes look like over the first operational period, which was 6 p.m. last night till 6 a.m. this morning, we had 1,279 calls for service. And again, the vast majority of those were either collisions or trees in the roadway. That compares to 519 during the same period of time last year. I just want to leave you with a couple of traffic safety recommendations as we move forward. Of course, where there is flooding, avoid going across flooded roadways. Look out for downed trees and power lines. Don't drive around barricades where you see barricades that have been positioned. And then lastly, of course, we've got a lot of traffic signals with the power being out that are not working. If you come up on a traffic signal that's not working, treat that just like you would a four-way stop. So if you're coming up on a four-way stop at a stop sign, you'd yield to the driver on the right. If you have any questions, Governor, that's all I have, sir.
Thanks, sir. Chief Mark Keel, SLED.
SLED Chief Mark Keel. All of our regional captains have been in contact with our sheriffs throughout the state to determine if there were any needs that they may have for law enforcement support. The PD Low Country, Midlands, and Piedmont captains have reported what we already know, power outages and trees down and power out throughout the state. We currently have 15 officers assigned in ESF 13, have 15 officers assigned that are assisting law enforcement. Those are in Aiken County, Lancaster County, and here in Richland County. We have also have aviation unit that will be prepared to provide transportation to DOT to do assessments as soon as the weather permits. And we're staying in contact with all of our law enforcement partners as we anticipate that as recovery goes on, that they will be requesting assistance for patrol and for additional support to backfill those shifts. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Chief. Director Mike Leach, Department of Social Services.
Good afternoon, Governor. Mike Leach, Department of Social Services. Our mass care teams, county emergency teams, volunteer organizations, partners such as Red Cross and Salvation Army are working side by side with our counties to support shelters for those displaced by the storm. Our agency is continuing to support our everyday mission for South Carolina's most vulnerable populations. Currently, South Carolina has 6 open shelters, 1 shelter in Lawrence County, 1 in Orangeburg County, 1 in Oconee County, one in Pickens County, one in Saluda County, and one in Spartanburg County. We are prepared to open more locations at county requests as they assess damages to people's homes and find displaced populations. Likely there will be additional shelters opening over the next 24 to 48 hours, so please check with your local emergency managers or go to www.scemd.org or download the SC Emergency Manager app to find a location near you. We do have a few counties who are in the process of identifying locations to support affected citizens by power outages, so please check back on the SCEMD's website when they do open. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Leach. State Fire Marshal Jonathan Jones.
Good afternoon, State Fire Marshal Jonathan Jones. All 6 of our South Carolina urban search and rescue teams are currently operating in the upstate. Our firefighter mobilization system, which is a statewide mutual aid system, has filled requests for swift water rescue teams in upstate counties. And we're also working to fill resource requests for additional fire engines and crews to supplement local fire departments in upstate counties. We've requested, as Director Stinson mentioned, additional urban search and rescue teams from other states through the Emergency Management Assistance Compact and through the federal urban search and rescue system through FEMA. As General McCarty mentioned, we have 2 of our helicopter aquatic rescue team crews of rescuers that are activated and prepared to respond with our National Guard partners for helicopter rescue should those resources be needed. Our incident support team out at State Fire is fully activated and helping to manage and coordinate search and rescue resources across the state as those issues arise and requests are processed. And as we're experiencing large areas with power loss, I want to share some important information about generator safety and candle safety. First of all, and I can't reiterate this enough, never run a generator inside your home. If you're using a portable generator, please make sure that you have either battery operated or battery backed up carbon monoxide alarms in your home. Before refueling a generator, please shut down the generator and allow it to cool. And make sure that you keep the generator at least 20 feet from doors, windows, and vent openings because carbon monoxide can make its way into the home even when the generator is outside if it's near openings into your home. Never use a generator in an attached garage because, again, carbon monoxide can build up and work its way from the attached garage into your home. If you're going to use candles for auxiliary lighting, first of all, make sure you check your smoke alarms before lighting any candles and make sure that those smoke alarms are working. Never leave those candles unattended. Consider using battery-operated flameless candles or flashlights for emergency lighting, and make sure that if you use candles, you place them in a sturdy candle holder on a flat surface to prevent any type of fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Director Andrew Bateman, Officer of Regulatory Staff.
Thank you, Governor. Andrew Bateman, South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff. This was a large storm with significant amounts of rain and wind. As of earlier this afternoon, the state had approximately 1.25 million power outages. The top 3 counties in the state for power outages were Greenville, Spartanburg, and Lexington. The South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff is actively working with other state agencies and utilities in the state in an effort to effectively and quickly and safely restore power. Thank you, Governor Mcmaster.
Thank you. President Keller Kassam, Dominion and Energy.
Keller Kassam, Dominion Energy. This hurricane was different than most. Most of them go up the Atlantic. They put all the energy out into the Atlantic, and all the rain comes in from the coast. This one unbelievably went up. It was supposed to go through Atlanta, the eye. It came closer to Augusta. It threw all of its energy to the east, and that's why we have the number of outages that we have, mainly from shear force winds, taking down trees, and causing structural damage. I have to say to my fellow South Carolinians, do not go near a down power line. In addition to that, if you're not experienced with a chainsaw, don't use it. If you go to cut trees that are caught up in telecommunications or power lines, they're under tension. And when you take that weight off and cutting that tree, it will spring back and it has the potential to kill you. So please stay away from that. If you have a down power line, make sure you call us and we will handle it. 386,000 customers out on the Dominion Energy system. It is the same number and approaches the number we had out with Hurricane Hugo, that famous hurricane. Now, we have more customers now, and the damage is not as intense. We've got 4 helicopters that are up in the air. 2 of them have the long saws on them, so we'll work transmission first because there's no need to, we'll focus on distribution, but we work transmission first. We have to get it energized. Then we can bring power to the substations in your neighborhood and then get your distribution going from there. You will be frustrated as this goes. Tomorrow it's going to be 86 degrees and clear. And you're going to say, why can't I watch the football game? Why can't I go out and my life get back to normal? And life's not going to be back to normal until probably the middle of next week from a power standpoint, just because of the sheer damage that we have. We have 465 off-system crews combined with 2,000 native crews that are out there working, and we are bringing more crews on now as we speak. We're getting them from Alabama, we're getting them from Mississippi, and I assure you we will not stop working until the very last South Carolinian has their power restored. And Governor brought it up. Calls from the governor's office. The first call I got this morning was from Secretary Powell with DOT, Robert Woods with the Highway Patrol, the National Guard. This is Team South Carolina coming together in order to work together. And I would encourage all South Carolinians to do the same. Have a positive attitude, work in your neighborhood just as we are working with each other, and we'll all come out this for the better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Mike Callahan, Duke Energy.
Mike Callahan, South Carolina President for Duke Energy, and I'll just start by emphasizing the comments that Keller made about Team South Carolina. Appreciate the opportunity, Governor, to join you. Appreciate the work that we do together in partnership around storms like this. We have a lot of experience, and I've spoken to a number of your agencies today as well. And Duke has been monitoring this storm and preparing for this storm for several days now. We have about 11,000 skilled workers on the system ready to work. We have damage assessors, tree crews, and line technicians from 18 different states and as far away as Canada prepared to respond to these outages. And these teams are designed to allow us to move them around the state as we get through outages to where the hardest hit areas are. I will say that this storm has caused significant and perhaps historic damage to the Duke Energy system. In counties like Greenville, Spartanburg, and Anderson, we had nearly 100% of our customers that experienced an outage. And based on our initial damage assessments, we know that we will have customers out for several days, similar to what Keller mentioned for the Dominion Energy system. As of noon today, we had about 633,000 customers still without power, but we have already begun those restorations and have gotten ahead of 77,000 customers already restored as the system has moved out and as it allows us to do so safely. I will close by saying we know how disruptive a storm like this is to our customers. We understand that electricity is essential to your daily lives, and we are fully prepared to respond as quickly and as safely as we can, and we will not stop until every customer has been restored. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Callahan. CEO Jimmy State, Santee Cook.
Excuse me. Thank you, Governor. And first, I'd like to start by thanking all of the utility crews, not just Santee Cooper's team, who of course I'm proud of, but all of the utility crews that are out responding right now. It's important during these types of emergencies that they work safely, and they have to date, and so we look forward to that. We started preparing for this storm earlier this week, began bringing in additional crews from out of state to help us, and we deployed those folks throughout the system. We started seeing the first level of damages yesterday afternoon. We were able to deploy our crews, and they worked overnight safely and continued to restore service. But just to give you an idea of where we are from a generating perspective, all of our generating units are working the way that we expected to. I will tell you the team in Anderson County had to cut their way into the Rainey station, but they successfully made it. On the transmission front, you all know that Santee Cooper has a very extensive electric transmission system throughout the state. It's what enables us to serve municipalities and mostly the cooperatives in the state. That has been the most impacted by this storm. So we have had 48 transmission lines impacted, and that is about 116 delivery points to municipals and cooperatives across the state. As of noon today, we've restored service to half of those points, so we're down to about 58 points that are left.
Our priority, first and foremost, is to operate safely, but secondly, it's to stabilize the transmission grid by working first on the highest voltage lines and then move down the line, very similar to what Keller was talking about. We are continuing to assess the damage on the system, but we know that we have 11 broken structures. We have 4 helicopters in the air. 2 of those are equipped with the long saws that Keller talked about so that we can immediately get the trees off the line and begin restoring service as quickly as possible. Now, Mike Callahan mentioned this is a different hurricane than what we've experienced. Normally, Santee Cooper's territory in Horry, Georgetown, and Berkeley County is directly affected because it comes off of the Atlantic. That was not the case this time. So our distribution business was not significantly impacted. Total of 6,200 customers, all but 80 of those have been restored. So again, like everyone else that's been up here, please be careful out there, stay away from power lines, and if you see a down power line, please give us a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy Stevens. President and CEO Rob Hostetler and Central Electric Power Co-op.
Thank you, Governor. Rob Hostetler, representing the 19 electric cooperatives of South Carolina. The electric co-ops were hit extremely hard by this morning's storm. The restoration process really is going to take place across a large swath of South Carolina. It's going to take days, perhaps well into next week. It is not hours. Hurricanes like Helene, Hurricane Helene knocked out power to 425,000 electric cooperative consumers. That's just less than half. As of about an hour ago, last time I checked, about 380,000 of those consumers are still without power. This storm snapped several hundred poles, yanked down lines, and damaged not just distribution systems, but as Jimmy and Keller said, the transmission lines and other critical infrastructure. The transmission lines are what I like to think of as the interstate system delivering power. As a result, dozens of substations, delivery points that Jimmy calls them, those are like the exits off of the interstate, are without power and out of commission. And so we've got to get the interstate, the transmission system running, and then the delivery points back up. For some of our co-ops, particularly those in the upstate and along South Carolina's western border, our folks are on the ground are saying this is the most destructive storm they've ever seen. Some of those people have worked for 40 years in the business. They've been through the 2014 ice storm, through Hurricane Hugo in '89, and they're saying again, this is the worst they've ever seen. A handful of our co-ops saw almost their entire system drop off. 98% of their consumers were without power early this morning. We're in the early process of assessing the damage, but it's substantial. It's bad. We are still early in the process, but we have co-op crews working across the state to restore power. We've called in help from places across the country, mostly in the southeast. We expect to be working around the clock this weekend and well into next week to restore power. Keep in mind, our co-ops serve some of the most rural areas and rugged parts of the state. In order to safely restore power, our crews have to inspect every mile of line, and that takes time, so please be patient. Our materials and equipment suppliers, just like our crews, are having to cut their way in and cut their way out to get equipment to the places it needs to be. It takes time to do this safely. Just this morning, we had trees fall on 2 trucks that were out trying to restore power. Luckily, the people were safe, but that tells you just how safe we need to be. The workers were okay in both cases. We're still early in the restoration process. We're going to work until the power is back on, and we need your help. Please be patient. Please be understanding with the folks that are out working. They're doing everything. We are doing everything we can. And finally, I'll end with this. I want to thank everyone behind me, particularly Office of ORS, Keller, Jimmy, Mike. It takes all of us working together. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Also, Director Myra Reese, South Carolina Department of Environmental Services.
All right. Thank you, Governor. The team at Department of Environmental Services is working very closely with all of our state agencies and with county officials, and I wanted to share some of our priorities that we're looking at. Beginning with dams, we continue to be in very close communication with our county emergency managers. They've been provided our dam safety program hotline number and also our emergency response phone number as a backup way to contact us. They also have access to all of our emergency action plans for dams in their area, and that's so important to provide the details what are those worst case scenarios if we were to have a breach, who could potentially be impacted, and who needs to be notified. We actually received 7 calls to our hotline to date, and I'm happy to say at this time no breaches have been reported, although because of the huge amount of flow and precipitation, we have had some reports of overtopping and significant flows. We also are planning our post-storm inspections for dams that will begin either this afternoon or tomorrow. That's the high hazard dams that received more than 8 inches of precipitation, and we want to make sure that we're getting out there and deploying as soon as it's safe to do so, and look at those assessments to see if we have any necessary actions. One thing that I will say this, that based on that trigger level, we'll be assessing more than 200 dams over the next couple of days. I do want to give you some situational awareness, just as we have to pay attention to the level of rainfall that occurs in North Carolina. We also need to be very alert and cognizant of things that might be going on with a dam, some of the dams in North Carolina as well. And just recently, we probably in the last couple of hours have heard from our colleagues up in North Carolina that they are watching very closely the Lake Lure Dam, and what they went ahead and did or doing in the process of doing is doing some evacuations. And so right after this press conference, Chief Kill, Secretary Powell, and I will be on the phone with the state of North Carolina. And what we're going to be talking about, I mentioned those emergency action plans. We already have a copy of that emergency action plan, which really is the worst case scenario if you had a breach at Lake Lure, and what is called an inundation mapping. And what would be structures and homes, bridges, all of these things that potentially could be impacted from a worst case scenario. And so what we're going to be doing is reviewing that model, ask North Carolina questions, but our initial preview of that, that plan does not really indicate any impacts to South Carolina. I think the important thing here is there's 53 river miles from that dam to the border of South Carolina, and there's also it would take about 13 hours. But we're going to be overly conservative looking at this and see if there's any occupied structures along the Broad River in Cherokee County that Chief Kill and some of the county officials will help us make some notifications. As far as drinking water facilities, we're not aware of any issues that are causing disruption of water services to customers at this time. As far as wastewater, we've only had 2 reports about operational status of some of our wastewater facilities. Wagner Wastewater Treatment Plant in Aiken County is partially offline, and then the Oconee Joint Regional Sewer Authority reports some overflows in Oconee County and have made the appropriate notifications. As far as the coast, we're not receiving any reports of damage to structures, some of the beachfront structures, but we will continue to be looking to get that information. And then private well owners, we're already getting the word out to folks, especially those in the upstate that had the heaviest rainfall, to monitor your private wells. Please reach out to us. We'll make sure you have the contact information, and we'd love to assist you with any testing or answer any questions that you have. Thank you, Governor.
All right, does anyone have a question?
Governor,
sure.
Do you have an estimate of when you think all power should be restored in South Carolina?
I'm sure someone can give a general estimate, but we know that it's going to be a while. And this hurricane, we're not talking about houses being washed into the ocean or thrown back into the creek and all that sort of stuff. This is something different. This is power lines down in a part of the state that we usually don't have this kind of weather.
It's unusual, Governor. You would think by midweek we'd like to be able to have power back to everybody that can have power midweek of next week. Now, when I say have power, you bring up a great point. If your weatherhead, your service going to your house, has been pulled off your house because of a tree, and it's the service line going to your house, you need to call a qualified electrician to come back and repair that weatherhead as well as your meter can, and then we'll come back and put your line up. A lot of times those drag on for an extended period of time, so we always like to say to all the people that can receive power from that standpoint, you know, we've started out, like I said before, with 386. We restored 100,000 customers so far, and we hope to continue to make progress. But you're eventually going to get into neighborhoods, and it's going to slow down to a crawl. So don't expect to see the numbers dive as they're doing today. So that's kind of my estimation. Jimmy and Mike may have a different scenario, but we're about the same.
Yeah, I would say something very similar. It's a little bit difficult to predict as we sit here right now with the storm having just exited the system in the last couple of hours. We'll have damage assessors getting out in the field and really seeing what we're holding. And we'll very quickly, as soon as we can, start communicating with our customers, because that's always an important part of this. Customers want to know when are we expecting to get power back so that they can figure out and make plans for their lives. And so we'll be working as fast as we can, like I said, as quickly and safely as possible. But this will be a multi-day effort similar to our other utilities in the state. As I mentioned, historic levels of damage in the upstate. We're not used to, for the Duke Energy service territories, the PD, we often get storms of this magnitude. In the upstate, our customers there do not typically face this kind of damage, so it will take several days.
And obviously, I would reiterate the same thing. We're a little bit different in that the damage to our system was mostly on our transmission system, and so we are working collaboratively with Rob Hostetler and the co-ops in the state, because we need to, as we restore those transmission lines, we need to do it in a thoughtful way and a safe way, so that we know that the cooperatives are ready for that energy at that point in time. So we're going to work very closely with them. It's a very meticulous process, and so we too expect it's going to be a multi-day event.
Yes, sir. I would just add one thing. That's an exceptional question, hard to answer until you've done your assessment. And so we're all in the assessment phase right now. And with the amount of trees that are down, it's hard to get the assessment done. But know that that's what we're working on as we're trying to restore power, is get an assessment, and probably a better question for a later time.
Next question.
On the power front, is there any concern? I know you've got crews coming in from out of state in different areas, but is there any concern on supplies as far as replacement components, transmission line, anything like that? Is that something you folks stockpile for a situation like this, or do you have to bring those in?
We do. We have what we call our storm kits, and so we go ahead and they're palletized. They're in our storeroom. They're set off to the side. We plan for this 365 days out of the year, and so they are quickly put on. Has the very common fuses, wire, repair fittings, the whole 9 yards. They're already palletized. Put on the 18-wheelers. Head out of Columbia from our main storeroom and go to all of the crew quarters that we have throughout South Carolina. That's just experience that we've gained, and that really helps us from that standpoint. So not concerned about material at this point.
And I would say the same for Duke Energy. You know, when we come into hurricane season, we know it's likely we're going to get hit somewhere, and so we make sure that we have the materials and supplies that we need to respond to that. And at this point, not aware of any issues, but we'll continue to keep people posted.
Same story. We have the material, all the material that we need. We've been doing a lot of consistent work on our transmission lines, and so we have a lot of that material available. Like these guys, we plan for storms, and so we will not have a material issue.
Any more?
Super quick. Co-ops, same way. The one thing the co-ops have done, though, co-ops cooperate, and that's how they gain scope and scale, and they own a supply company that's located right here in Columbia. So the supply company has plenty of supplies.
Next question.
Governor, do you have any more details on you mentioned the 4 deaths, but exactly the situation surrounding those deaths?
As far as we're able to tell at this point, all 4 deaths are traffic related. Of course, you know, there's still investigations that are ongoing with regard to those, but we're confident in saying they were traffic related.
Question for Kim. When you talk about communication losses in some of these counties, I know you're saying that you guys are in contact with them, but
Are we talking about cell phone towers being down? What's going on there? Like,
We've got the landlines we can talk to. We've got our local government radio if we need to. So we're in pretty good shape in terms of talking one-on-one with the counties. But internally, many of the cell towers lacking power, the generators in some cases where they have them, potentially could need to be refilled and that sort of thing. So there's certain issues there, but we're getting there, I think.
Are any counties cut off essentially?
No, I don't think so.
What about hospitals? When we talk about energy and power, obviously they have backup generators, but are they all online on the grid? Do we know, or what's the status of the hospitals?
Dr. Ed Simmer, Interim Director, South Carolina Department of Public Health. Right now we have 6 hospitals that are running on generator power because their power is out. All of them are able to provide necessary services on those generators. We have no current issues, although we are in very close contact with them. We also have a number of nursing homes and assisted livings, again, that are without power, but are running on generator and are providing care to their patients. That's part of what we do when we license them and we inspect them, is we check to make sure they have a good emergency plan, that they have working generators. So they are very well prepared and they are functioning normally at this time.
Where are those hospitals? Which hospitals can you say?
I can get you a list probably afterwards, but I do have a list I can send you.
As far as the downed cell sites, or the cell sites that are not operational, do you know which counties those are in or which areas?
No, I don't have good information on that at all right now.
Director Reese, what's the probability on that Lake Lure situation in terms of affecting, in terms of it actually happening?
I don't think anyone can really answer that. You really have to keep a close look at the current situation. I know that the state has been out there and has looked for signs of erosion, just things that would probably give them pause that a breach is a possibility. And they're not going to wait. They want to be very protective, take precautions early. And it may be a situation that they can go in and reinforce that dam, and it goes on a list to be repaired, or it may give them more confidence that we need to keep this evacuation current for a longer time. So I'm sure the state of North Carolina is on top of it, and certainly we'll be having those kind of conversations with them.
When it comes to those Cherokee County notifications, are those notifications to evacuate, or are those just letting folks know that there could be a problem?
I think what we'll do is we'll get a better sense of the specific situation. We just very quickly pulled that plan out, and I think we identified about 15 probably homes along the Broad River, and they're probably already being vigilant and alert because of the floods. And John had mentioned something to me that the Broad River is going to crest tonight, which that would be a good thing if we were to have a problem with this dam. And there's no guarantee that the entire impoundment would breach and release water. It could be a partial breach. There are just so many different factors with it.
Next question.
Governor, in past storms, you've directly addressed South Carolinians from that podium before the storm hits. Why didn't that happen in this case?
There was a lot of information. There's a lot of information out. Everyone was on alert, and it was very much covered in the news.
But from that podium in this specific setting, like with Debbie, for instance.
Well, we were satisfied that the information was out.
Did the trek surprise you? For John Q, for Governor Mcmaster, is that?
Yeah, we thought it was going to go more towards Atlanta, but these things are unpredictable. There was I can't remember which year it was or which hurricane, but it was coming right straight at us, and then it zipped out into the Atlantic. And others had come towards us and then turned and go to North Carolina. This one was headed slightly away and then turned right into us when it got inland.
And that turn happened overnight, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was. We never know where they go. That's why we pre-position people all over the place to where it is likely to go in order to be able to respond immediately without having to move things after it happens. Anyone want to further on that, Kim?
Well, actually, one of the biggest success stories we've had is with the swiftwater rescue teams. and maybe Chief Jones can talk about that. But years ago, we did not do too much in the way of pre-positioning anything. We waited for the call. So maybe Chief Jones, you could see what you've revolutionized.
Thank you. Yeah, from the search and rescue perspective, we really lean on the counties to express to us what they anticipate their needs are. And so this being honestly a very different storm than what we have encountered in the past, usually it's the upstate fire departments and search and rescue teams from those upstate counties that are sending help to the coast. And this time it was the coast sending help to the upstate. So we are in constant communication with the counties of what their anticipated needs are. We have a very robust fire service in South Carolina and search and rescue program in South Carolina. And so all of those teams are in play. And as I mentioned, in this case, all of our teams are in play, and we anticipate needing more help. So we've reached out to other states to provide search and rescue assistance. I was on the phone just earlier with the state of Louisiana, who we have gone repeatedly to help. And they're in the process of rostering search and rescue teams to send to help us in Louisiana, here in South Carolina. As we anticipate, this is going to be an ongoing operation, as they have to get to every house that has a tree on them, make sure the people are okay, be able to provide stabilization to structures that may be unstable, and those sorts of situations. Fortunately, there wasn't as much of a need for swift water in this storm as honestly we anticipated. The wind damage honestly was very, very impactful, and so that's been widespread across, especially the upstate. But we've got all of those teams now positioned, stood up, and they're operating in the upstate.
One final point: you see all these different entities, public and private. You see how closely we all work together. But it's for that reason to allow, and that's a great thing. We call it Team South Carolina. But in order to allow, to facilitate the ease of working together, to eliminate any sort of log jams or technicalities, that's why I issued that executive order, that emergency declaration on Wednesday for this very thing. And I want to thank all of these people for working so closely together to minimize the damage. Any more questions?
Director Leach, how many people are on shelters right now?
There are 29 individuals in shelters at this point in time, but that number is changing every hour. But I think probably 35 has been our max at this point in time.
Okay.
Sorry. Go ahead.
That's all.
Secretary Powell had a question. When it comes to road clearing crews, have you heard any information about areas that were hit the hardest in terms that were almost like hard to get through in terms of small towns and passable roads? Any areas that were really, really hit?
So I think what we've seen is, kind of to what Governor said, Director Stinson said, we've been preparing for this event. So we actually the initial forecast track was saying heavy in the northwestern corner of the state, which is where is a heavy impact. We moved non-crews into that area as well. And then we've had folks at 24-hour operations. So we were positioned and ready for it. I think what we're dealing with right now, I think what the areas we seem to be reporting the highest amounts of trees down, Greenwood, Lawrence, Greenville, Spartanburg, Pickens County, those areas seem to be kind of the center of this. It tends to be a line basically from Gaffney down to Barnwell. If you go west, that seems to be our highest impacts in terms of road closures and trees down.
Do you have any idea in terms of how many primary routes are still blocked, or are they all pretty much? Is there anything you can point to?
So right now we're focused on the interstate system is kind of our first order of operations right now. We have some trees down on I-85 in the upstate, I-26 north of here in Columbia. We're going to be focusing on that today, getting those cleared, and then we're going to shift over into the primary routes. And then that's already underway in clearing on that. But we kind of follow that hierarchy I talked about earlier about clear the interstates, primaries, and then our secondary roads.
I have a question for you as well. In terms of the roads that are affected, are these sort of typical problem spots that storm to storm you guys keep going back to repair?
So what I would say is this storm is a lot of tree debris in the roadway. So it's not road washouts necessarily we're having, or bridges that are having issues. So it's been much more of this, and I would say based on what we've heard from our power partners, we use the power company outages to track where we know we have issues on the roadway. This is an unprecedented amount of debris on the roadway, so we're going to be working at it. But it is kind of across the upstate region.
In general, are there efforts to continue to improve quality of roads for other storms that may have more flooding and damage like that, not debris?
Yeah, in our 10-year plan, obviously when we upgrade a road, we're not building it back as it was, we're building it back better. So particularly on a bridge, we're planning for those flood events so that it's there in the future. So we build that effort to build our infrastructure in a better way where appropriate when we go and do a construction project.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and we urge everybody to be patient and keep your neighbors in your prayers. Thank you.
Amen.